Andy Rooney tonight on 60.
Psychiatrists, a fad has taken hold in their profession that has led some of their colleagues to abuse the trust of their patients. Critics say that fad is a trendy diagnosis called multiple personality disorder, MPD. Its proponents assert that frequently because of childhood trauma, an individual may create several different personalities in his or her own mind. The critics of the MPD diagnosis say these personalities and the so-called memories they dredge up are frequently false, some of them planted by the therapist. Tonight, the story of a Wisconsin woman who went to see a psychiatrist for her depression in 1986 and wound up 6 years later believing she possessed 126 different personalities. Her name is Nadine Kuhl. 126 different personality. What does that mean, Nadine?
It means that I had 126 different people.
In you?
Inside me.
And you believed in multiple personality disorder?
He taught me to believe in multiple.
So you believed?
Yes.
Dr. Kenneth Olson was Nadine's psychiatrist. For 6 years, ending in 1992, he treated her at St. Elizabeth Hospital in Appleton, Wisconsin. How did he convince Nadine that she had all those personalities, including that of a teenage boy and that of the bride of Satan? She says it was a combination of large amounts of drugs and lots of sessions of hypnosis.
It was a very covert thing. I did not realize what he was doing.
What do you mean?
He said, "Have you ever imagined yourself on a beach?" And before I knew it, I was in trance. And when he brought me up from the trance, he said, "I knew it. I knew you'd be a great candidate. This is going to work perfectly. This is going to be wonderful."
In therapy sessions like this one that Dr. Olson videotaped, he hypnotized her. And then, she says, he convinced her she had been severely abused as a child.
So explain to me again what we're doing.
Encouraging her to remember episodes that had, in fact, never taken place. You told him that they had never happened when you were out of hypnosis?
No, I never really did, because he would say, "Your mind is like a video camera. It doesn't forget. And you know, these memories are real."
What kind of memories?
It started out with my father, mainly involving me in cult activities that included killing and stabbing and being raped and killing babies, eating babies, cannibalism.
Oh, come on.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Children.
Children? What about the children?
They're screaming.
What's happening to them?
Violent.
Okay. Something bad. Yeah. So the people in the cult, the master, maybe your father made you do really, really horrible things.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Paul McHugh is chief of the psychiatry department at Johns Hopkins University. He says that he has never seen a case of multiple personality disorder that was not induced by the therapist.
Oh, I'm quite convinced that Nadine Kuhl had multiple personality created in her by the various techniques that Dr. Olson used to treat her.
Beginning in late 1995, Dr. McHugh had been studying Nadine Kuhl's case and Dr. Olson's treatment of her.
He began his treatment with hypnotic approaches to her, putting her into trances where suggestion increases. As well, he gave her rather large doses of sedatives and pain medications for what he referred to as her psychic pain. And then he built up the therapies that he was seeing her from once a week to 4 times a week to finally marathon sessions that distracted her from any other influences around her. So that all 3 of these methods ultimately produced in her anything that Dr. Olson had in his mind.
She became his
puppet, very much, the puppet of his creation.
Frankly, I'm astonished to hear you speak with such candor.
Well, I wouldn't be doing this at all if I didn't feel that this huge misdirection in psychiatric practice hasn't hurt thousands of families in our country, and that it's important to begin to talk to people about the nature of the standards of psychiatric care.
Back to Nadine Kuhl. Did you have health insurance? Was that what paid for all this?
For the most part, yes. We had very good health insurance.
I should say you did.
And he always commented on how fortunate I was to be one of the lucky people that had very good health insurance.
How much did it cost the insurance company?
$320,000.
Not just for the therapy.
Well, that includes the hospitalizations, the 35, 38 hospitalizations.
Why were you hospitalized by him?
Because I became extremely suicidal. Extremely suicidal. I could not stand what was happening to my brain and the memories and the thoughts and the pictures. I couldn't get it to stop at times.
It was so real to Nadine that she confronted her father with it during a telephone conversation.
I said, I know what you did, and I know you're the ringleader of this cult, and I know you murdered babies. And I know you made me murder babies and eat babies, and I know just what you are. I know you for the Satanist that you are.
And what did he say to you on the phone?
He didn't say anything. He didn't say anything.
And then?
He was dead a week later, 10 days later.
Heart attack.
Right. And I was in the hospital, and Dr. Olson would not let me go to the funeral.
And finally, he performed an exorcism on you. Where did that take place?
At the hospital. He told me I was possessed. He told me I had Satan inside my body.
Mm-hmm.
And that is why I was not getting better. And he came in the room with a fire extinguisher and some holy water, a crucifix, and the Roman Catholic rite of exorcism.
Did I hear you say a fire extinguisher? Why did he have that?
Because he said since I was possessed, that I could possibly spontaneously combust.
And he was going to put out the flames.
Right. And he would need that to extinguish it.
And did Satan leave your body?
I told him he did. After 6 hours, I had told him anything.
We asked Dr. Olson to talk to us about all this, but he declined. However, last year he had talked to Nadine's lawyer after she had sued Olson for malpractice.
Dr. Olson, will you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear?
Nadine's attorney videotaped Dr. Olson's deposition under oath.
I do.
In it, he denies having planted false memories in her mind and says that he was simply reacting to the things she told him. However, he acknowledged to attorney Bill Smoller that he did perform the rite of exorcism.
Besides reading the rite to her, did you do anything else?
At certain junctures during the rite, it's asked that holy water be applied, and others that the crucifix be presented to her.
Did you do those two things?
Yes, might have touched her with the crucifix.
Where
In the
did you touch her with
deposition,
the
Dr. Olson admitted he read the exorcism rite out of this book, Hostage to the Devil, which details the exorcism of 5 individuals. Dr. Olson also acknowledged that he did indeed bring a fire extinguisher to the exorcism.
Where did you get it from?
I bought it. It's on my exorcism shopping list.
What did you think about the fact that he performed an exorcism on Nadine Cole?
I thought that was the ultimate extravagance of his misdirection and malpractice.
Dr. Paul McHugh, convinced of Dr. Olson's malpractice, testified against him last February as an expert witness. And Dr. Olson's attorneys never even presented a defense against the charges. Although Dr. Olson claimed that he did nothing wrong, his insurance company settled, and they paid Nadine Cool $2.4 million. During the trial, Nadine's attorney, Bill Smoller, had noticed a young woman sitting in the courtroom.
Nobody knew who she was, and she kind of just sat by herself, and at times you could see that she was tearful and very sad. And after a couple of days, she came up to me and said, Mr. Smoller, you're putting on testimony that is my life. This is exactly what happened to me.
She turned out to be a former patient of Dr. Olson's from the early 90s, name of Sherry Storm, who says that she was stunned by Nadine's testimony in court.
Every single thing listed was supposedly my memory as well. With Dr. Olson, memories that came out about being sexually abused by cult members, animals, all kinds of stories. And it hit me like a rock because it was like, what are the chances that another woman here has the same memories I do?
It turned out the chances were quite good. For when she sat down with these 3 other former patients of Dr. Olson, each of whom began seeing him in the late 80s, Their stories were remarkably similar to Nadine Kuhl's.
We had our first hypnotherapy, and at that point, the first session, he said there were other personalities, and I had multiple personalities.
Ann Vanden Heuvel saw Dr. Olson for 5 months. In 1992, she sued him, and a jury awarded her $204,000. Tracy Enders saw Olson for just a month and a half.
And he told me that he was the only one that could help me.
Lori Lienhardt sued Dr. Olson after seeing him for 2 years. His insurance company settled for an undisclosed amount.
He had me convinced that there was childhood abuse, and that's where the multiple personalities started to come across.
You're having trouble with this, Sherry. Why?
I just found out a few months ago about all this. I didn't know there were so many of us. I didn't even know that this doctor was a fraud until recently. And it didn't happen to just us. It happened to our children, our significant others, or spouses, or ex-spouses, or family.
He told my husband I'd kill my children.
He told your husband you'd killed your children?
Yeah, I ended up losing my husband. I lost almost a full year of my children's lives. We lost our house in foreclosure from the medical bills. We had to claim bankruptcy. I mean, he took a lot of things from a lot of people.
These women and Nadine Kuhl insist that some of the blame for Dr. Olson's malpractice must go to St. Elizabeth Hospital.
The hospital knew he was doing something wrong.
Well, then why did the hospital let it go on?
Because it was such a good money-making industry.
Do you believe that, all of you?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. They had to make tons of money. When we were in the hospital, a room just huge, filled with MPD patients. I mean, I must have ate lunch with probably 15 MPD patients all the time. I mean, it was nonstop.
But all the MPD patients were Dr. Olson's?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
We asked to speak with officers at St. Elizabeth, but they declined, citing patient-doctor confidentiality, although they did write us a letter saying that Dr. Olson had left the hospital in good standing in 1992. That same year, before any of the women had filed a lawsuit, Dr. Olson moved to Bozeman, Montana. With an apparently clean record, he was granted a medical license, and he is now on the staff of Bozeman Deaconess Hospital. There is no oversight committee, let's say, of the American Psychiatric Association or something of that sort that would censure a doctor?
Well, I don't think that there is an oversight committee that does censuring, but I certainly know that there is a group in the American Psychiatric Organization that is looking at this, that has pointed out the great dangers of repressed and recovered memory concept, the great dangers of hypnosis. They haven't taken on the role of identifying a particular person to indict for these practices.
Fact is, the psychiatric profession may never take action on this issue because, says Dr. McHugh, they are hoping the multiple personality disorder diagnosis simply fades away.
I believe that we have seen here in psychiatry, like we've seen in other aspects of our society and history, a craze. And now, like all crazes, the damage that it did is becoming evident, and the diagnosis, the approach, the very ideas themselves are waning. It's going to be like the hula hoop. It'll be gone.